Hello, James Gillum, student at SDI in class FTH 212-51914. It's Sunday, April 21st, and we're going to be talking about week 5's assignment, which is going to cover a myriad of topics ranging from overall health checks, places to look at for health in your firearms. We're going to cover 10 different experiences I've learned over the course of this class. We're also going to be identifying modifications, how I'd like to make these modifications, and a couple of other things. So let's get at it. Firearm magazine's ejected. There's no ammunition inside the chamber or the magazine well. There's no magazine or ammunition, that's snap caps. There's no live ammunition present. One of the best ways to determine firearm health is to make sure that when it does have ammunition in it and is ready to fire, that it does lock and chamber all the way. So see how it's detached there, wooden chamber. So that's not going to fire how it is. Another is going to be a way to test the trigger, which would be the same way. You can actually squeeze back on it. Trigger fires and engages. This is where a functions check would come in. Part of firearms health be these rails on the inside here, noticing how these guys are nice and shaped. If there's any burrs or damage or anything like that, that's definitely going to cause firearm malfunctions and issues such as cycling or even getting into chamber. Barrel 2. One of the issues with firearms health with this, you see how this is nice and smooth and polished and ready to go. You can also see down in there the grooves and lands are all in good condition. Generalized straightness of the barrel too is another key factor of this. Slide, you can see the actual springs here are all under tension. Those are going to be pieces to include the extractor here. These are all going to be things that we need to make sure the general health of the firearm is intact by checking these overall condition of all of your fire control group pieces too. That is important. The striker that's inside here is basically acted upon by all of these different myriad of springs that are inside here, the sear and so on, which would be down in here. Sear resets with the trigger. Sear's damaged, trigger's not going to reset. It's not going to fire. So I'll push that guy forward a little bit. So without any of those, even the magazine release, which is on this guy here, on the side, if you look down inside there, which is a little hard to see, there it is, you can see the magazine release being acted on. All these things have to do with the health and operation of your optics and sights. That's also a key factor. In this case, I've got a dual setup. I have a red dot, and I have suppressor height sights, iron sights on here. That's part of it. Make sure there's no burning or any damages on the outside or exterior of the slide, to include the grooves here before you grab. Magazines too. So the overall function of the magazine is important as well. You can see this one moves nice and free. So the spring inside, we're going to take it apart and make sure that it operates, your butt plate, and of course you want to make sure that the follower there is in good condition, not damaged, cracked, or drive spring, your recoil spring here. Basically make sure that she's good and straight, which it does, rolls nice and straight. Springs are in good condition, clean, free of debris. No loose screws there. Part 2. One of the modifications I want to do to this particular firearm and a couple of other ones is I want to actually cut ports inside the barrel itself and use that sort of as a dual slotted ported system. The slide, I'm probably actually going to match how these guys have the holes here. I want to vent the tops as well. That way additional gas will push this out through here. The idea behind that is to kind of help it with be even more accurate. This portion, taking the actual ports in here, that's going to be simple. It's going to take probably about an hour to go through with a CNC machine and just be really careful with it, or even just using some of the metal working tools that I have here to kind of go through and cut, making sure that I'm going to put 3 even ports in there to sort of help dissipate that heat and help with recoil control. What's in here on the top though, that's where things are going to get interesting. That's going to be more time consuming. That can be 2 to 3 to 4 hours depending on tools I have available. Right now, with what I have available at my disposal, I don't have the ability to do this modification, so it's something that's going to have to wait for the future. For this modification, doesn't require any really additional costs other than my time, and if I break any tool bits, which I'm fortunate enough I have a small working shop here. I have all the tool bits I need to make sure those carved pieces come out the way they need to. I can run them across the middle and get them cleaned up and cut kind of the way I want to, just general slashing going across it. So the cost involved in that, not so much. Now, when it comes to charging these kinds of services, that's where things get kind of strange. I mean, I've seen people do barrel porting, you know, for $125, $100. I mean, really, I don't see it as being too labor intensive. So I would try to undercut some of the local shops. So if they're selling it for 100 or 125, I'd probably do like 80. Just because I'm a smaller business, I don't have a lot going on, more of a hobby, but I still want to have a professional product. So, and as I said, I mean, this is not my primary source of income, so my rates would not necessarily align with a lot of the local shops. A lot of local shops, they have overhead, they have employees, they have businesses. This is something I'm doing as a hobby service, hobby business, or as a service to the company that I work for when I teach firearms. So it's an add-on. It's a cherry on top, and it's a bonus we can give to our customers who are already receiving training and other types of services from us. So I think that helps with the overall sells the rest of the product as far as everything else. Let's talk about 10 different learning experiences we've grasped from here. Learning experience number 1. Stippling in general was a learning experience for me. I have never had any experience with stippling other than a firearm that I've already had that was previously stippled. So going through and learning the process was a bit much of a new increase for me. 2, when we start talking about the actual application of some of the disassembly and reassembly, going through and just actually taking out some of these small pieces, the springs and pins that were in here, was definitely a bit of a learning curve for me. I had to be a bit more gentle than I would like to think I am, a bit rough on stuff. Going into number 4, one of the things I learned, and this is something I always knew, but I never actually used it in a functions check setting before, was checking the trigger out of battery. You know, we'd always done functions checks with the series set, and that was kind of the end of it. Whenever I was in the military, basically fire it. In this case, there's no safety, so they can't put it on safety, so you squeeze, dry fire it, hold it back, lock it forward, let the series set, take your finger off of it, hear the click, you know it's good. So therefore, having that out of battery, it was something else. It's a little bit more expedient. I like that idea, so that was definitely something else I learned. Number 5, I actually learning to take the interior parts of the slide apart, such as like taking the extractor out, for example, removing the firing pins and all the other components inside here. Never done it before, so that was something I learned. So there's quite a few things I learned there. 6 would be taking the fire control group out and actually seeing all the little internal pieces moving and all that. These pins literally just slide right out and everything kind of falls out of them. The fire control group, as far as this portion here, though, it by and large stays in together. So that's kind of one thing I learned too, is even with the slide off, you can still engage the trigger and you can manually reset it. You can hear the sear kick back in. So even with the slide off, you can still check it. So you didn't need to know that. I'd never done that before, so that was kind of new. In 8, I would say I didn't really understand just how popular stippling was, as far as people requesting the service. It's not something in my area that I guess I've noticed that much. So having a whole full class on it and kind of getting a bit more in depth of it, and I can see how it's a fairly quick way to enhance a firearm, and from a gunsmith's point of view, it's a good service to offer that, you know, can yield a good extra learning payment. About the drop safety test from Glock, for the Glock platform, or for this, that would be definitely number 9. I've never done anything like that before. It's the idea of just kind of wrapping something with a rubber hammer and seeing if it works. Seems a bit rudimentary, but you know, it's a good thing. 10, I would say the firing pin safety too. Knowing these platforms, I mean, I always knew the firing pin was in there. I just assumed it was just a straight direct. So actually learning what safe action system or safeties that Glock created a little bit more in depth was definitely a bit of a learning experience. So those are 10 items I've learned.